Today is Wednesday, February 4th, and we're talking WBC. Between the Bases starts right now. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a new episode of the Between the Bases podcast. My name is Noah, alongside is Micha Block, and today we were joined by Shawn Spradling from the WBC. He's a WBC expert. We had some good conversations with him. We talked, everything from the USA to Japan to Dominican Republic. We talked everything with him. So I'll send you over there right now. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a new episode of the Between the Bases podcast. My name is Noah, alongside me today is Micha Block, and today we're joined by special WBC expert Shawn Spradling. Shawn, thank you for taking your time and coming on.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, so let's get right into it. Obviously, the big news over the weekend is Puerto Rico, due to insurance issues, they might have to drop out of the WBC. So can you just, explain, what's going on with the insurance and everything? And if Puerto Rico does have to drop out, which it doesn't seem likely, what type of effect is that going to have in the WBC?
Yeah, that's definitely the biggest storyline for the World Baseball Classic, this weekend. Although today, the bigger news was that all 20 national team rosters were due, the final rosters for the WBC were all submitted today. But with Puerto Rico specifically, they were actually given a couple hour extension. So we don't know exactly which players were submitted, which ones weren't, since it sounds like they actually submitted their roster with a couple empty slots. And the reason is because of the insurance, like you said. So every player on a 40-man roster for MLB fans, MLB 40-man rosters, you have to have WBC insurance so that your salary is guaranteed. Because if you get hurt in the WBC and you don't play that year, it's we got to figure out who's going to pay you for that year. Otherwise the player's just going to not get paid for an entire year, which would be terrible for them. So if they get insurance, the insurance company pays for that player's salary if they get hurt. And if they don't get insurance, and they play and they get hurt, then they either don't get paid that year or the team has to decide we're going to guarantee that contract, which doesn't happen very often. So normally the player will just decide not to play. Well, for Lindor and Correa and a couple other big name players on Puerto Rico, they didn't get approved insurance from the insurance company, which was a huge mess because the Puerto Rican Baseball Federation and MLB and the MLBPA, they're all trying to figure out what to do with that, because it seems like some players are getting approved for insurance that maybe fans didn't think they should, and then others that think they should be approved didn't get it, and just it's kind of a mess. So all that to say, yeah, right now they're meeting with MLB to try to figure out if they can get alternative insurance for Lindor and Javier Baez and Jose Barrios, some of their big guys. And the Puerto Rican Baseball Federation president had actually threatened, like you said, to withdraw from the tournament. I don't think that's going to happen because they've had so many players that have already been approved over the last couple of days. But if they did withdraw, it would be a nightmare for the WBC because they're one of the host pools, one of the 4 host pools, and Puerto Rico fans and the country has been one of the biggest, most loyal supporters of the tournament since it started in 2006. So.
Yeah, that's obviously been the biggest storyline of so far leading up to this WBC. But in general, I guess there's been in the past some backlash from MLB teams, their GMs in the front office about how they might not, love the WBC and the fact that, we saw with Diaz in the past WBC. And I'm a Mets fan. And I hated to see that Diaz, going down. So have you almost seen the GMs or I guess the front offices, kind of turn their heads the other way a little bit because of the success, not only this past WBC, but I guess in other WBCs, has their view changed?
Micah, that's a good question because I think before 2023, I feel like the GMs and the coach, the managers and the owners, they were pretty skeptical. And then we came into 2023 and they were I don't know if we want to let our players play. So you saw a lot of players getting blocked, which for the record, they can't block like owners can't block players, GMs can't block players from playing the WBC unless there's an injury and insurance issue. So it's like they were blocked. That just means like the team was like, just don't play, and the player was like, oh, okay, fine. So I think going into 2023, it was like there was a lot of players that did get like unofficially blocked because their owner didn't want them to. But then 2023 was such a huge success that I think in this year, what I've seen, I feel like I see a lot of GMs or even players talking about their clubs saying like, yeah, they don't really want me to play, but it's my decision, so I get to play now. So I think it's a lot of right now, like the Astros and the Giants specifically, both of their like front offices came out and were like, yeah, like we give our opinion. We, being totally honest, we don't really want them to play, but like it's their decision. If they want to go represent their country, they can. Like Logan Webb said, like they didn't approve of him playing this year, but he's like, I'm going to play. I want to play for the Team USA. So
Yeah.
I take a sports management class, shout out OG, the teacher. And a topic of discussion was, we're talking about all the different all-star games in the NHL. Obviously, the Four Nations was a hit last year. But where we're at right now with the WBC, like there's talks, people want to move it to maybe the All-Star week, which I don't think is a good idea because baseball's competing with nothing in terms of the All-Star game. But I think we're in a perfect spot right now where it is at the beginning of the season. But again, like there's injury concerns now that if a player gets hurt at the beginning of the season, he's out for the full season. So do you think this is the perfect time to do it? Because I've heard people throwing out, the All-Star week, maybe after the season, which I don't think is a good idea. But do you think this is the best time to actually do the WBC?
I've had this conversation probably a million different times because that's the $1 million question. It's like, is it best to do it in March or is it best to change the time? Because we've been doing it in March ever since it started in 2006. So let me ask you guys this, because I'm curious to hear what you say. Which of those three options, spring training, All-Star break, or after the season, which do you think you would get most approval and like a green light from the GMs and the managers and the front offices on pitchers specifically? Because that's the biggest issue is pitchers. Which of those three do you think you'd get like most approval for?
After the season, probably.
Yeah, I would say after the season.
You think so?
Yeah.
I mean, from a front office perspective, after the season, but from a fan's perspective, you're kind of like done with it. You want to start off hot, I feel like. So, yeah.
I also feel like from a player side of things, I feel like the end of the season, you just want to kind of rest. And you just played a full 8 months of baseball from the end of February all the way to October. Why would you want to go into a very competitive competition at the end of the year?
Yeah, I personally don't think that the winter is the best time, and I'll explain why in a second. But I've heard counterpoints to what you just said in saying that there's a lot of winter leagues. Like all the players go and play in the winter leagues, and they don't really have much of an issue. So it's like, why don't we have the WBC there? I personally think that March is the best time to have it of the three right now. I think we have a good thing going. It was an incredible success in 2023. We have even more buy-in in 2026. I mean, we have Paul Skeens and Tarek Skubal playing.
And Aaron Judge.
And Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani. Like, what more do you need than like the Cy Young winners, the MVP winners? Like, everyone is bought in at this point. And so I think let's just keep riding that. The hard part is, of course, the pitchers. With after the season, I think that you've already, like you guys said, you've already gone a whole season with your pitchers. Like they're going to have nothing left in the tank. For the All-Star game, I actually think that if we eventually got around to figuring out how to do it during the All-Star break, I'm fine with it because then players are ramped up, the arms are warm, everybody's in mid-season form. Great, we take like a 2 to 3 week break in the middle of the season, and like other sports do that, like international breaks in soccer. So
hockey's doing one this week for the Olympics.
There you go. Exactly. So it's like, it's not uncommon for sports to do that. You have everyone goes on break for a couple weeks and you just like, some people say they replace the All-Star game. Some others say like it just supplements it. I could see it, but the hard part is getting approval from the front offices because if a player gets hurt in July, it's way harder for them to be ready for October than if they get hurt in March. Then they have an entire season to be healthy, So I think March makes the most sense because yes, like players do need to ramp up a little bit earlier and start warming up earlier in the winter. But you already have the buy-in from the pitchers, and you have I think that GMs and owners are starting to warm up to the idea. So I say we just keep it at this point.
Yeah, I mean now that I'm kind of thinking about it more and about just thinking deeper about this topic, I feel like from a pitcher standpoint about how, the GMs and the front offices would most let their pitchers, I feel like at the beginning they're not warm, and at the end they're worn out. So there's kind of like both of them are like the kind of like the highest chance, and then right in the All-Star break, you're like you said, you're like ramped up and you have your arm ready. So
Yep.
I feel like that might be my new answer. That like if you want to get from a pitcher standpoint and from a GM standpoint about what's like maybe the least possible to get injured, from a baseball fan that doesn't know so much about how the arm works and stuff.
For sure.
That would probably make the most sense.
Yeah, but I feel like for a fan's perspective, I feel like as a fan, I want it to be in March because I'm just sitting here right now craving baseball. I think the faster we get to, more competitive baseball, the better. That at the end of the year, I love baseball, but again, we're through 8 months. Like I'm kind of like tired of it. And the All-Star break, I think the MLB is good where they're at right now with the All-Star break. That I'm loving where the WBC is right now.
Would you trade off, because the counterpoint to that would be, yeah, I think March makes a lot of sense because everybody's just craving baseball and everybody wants the season to come back. But what if it was during the All-Star break and you got even more buy-in? Everyone played because everyone's warm and all the teams are fine with it. Then you don't have to worry about like Lindor maybe being healthy enough or not for the season, or like a lot of the pitchers, they don't like to pitch in the WBC. The American pitchers, I'll caveat, because most of the other countries they're all going to be there. But a lot of the American pitchers, like Hunter Brown, there was a report today that said he declined because he just wanted to prepare for the season. Well, if it's in July, there's no more preparing for the season. You are mid-season form. You don't have to worry about it at all. So he would probably pitch, is my guess. It's just having to restructure the season seems kind of like a pain to me. Like I don't know how much of a lift it would be to have to like totally restructure how that All-Star break works. But I see a case. Honestly, I do see a case for all three options. There's no perfect like time of the year because at the end of the day, to be totally honest, like MLB front offices don't ever want their players to pitch for anyone else. That's how it's been for 100 years, and they don't want to change that. I think they're starting to come around to it. So I'm just like, okay, well, if they're starting to buy in, let's just like keep doing what we're doing so that they can finally get used to the idea of their players playing for their national teams.
Yeah, and you mentioned, the break in the middle of the season. Obviously, we mentioned before that hockey's doing one right now for the Olympics. Do you think that there's ever a world in which baseball comes back to the Olympics where baseball will stop and have the Olympics? You think they're fine where they're right now with the WBC, that they don't really want to expand the Olympics?
Great. That's a great question and great timing for it too, because in 2028, the Olympics are in LA. And there's a lot of speculation and a lot of reports that have been saying that MLB players will actually be allowed to play in the Olympics for the first time ever. Because we've never had
the last one. What was it? 2020. It was all minor league players.
Exactly. 40-man roster players were not even allowed to play in the Olympics. And then before, like, I think it was like 2008 was maybe the last time. I don't remember exactly. But when we had baseball last in the Olympics, it was only amateurs. Like no big leaguers, no professional players could play. It was only amateur players. So it's really changing to the point to where like we might actually have big leaguers. And like Bryce Harper was super vocal about it. He was like, I'm playing in the Olympics. If they let me, I want to play in the Olympics. I want to win a gold medal for my country. Like Shohei Ohtani, I'm sure would play. He's talked about playing because it's in LA. And then this last week, actually, Dave Roberts said he wants to manage that team. If MLB players are allowed to play, he's like, I want to manage that team in Dodger Stadium. Why not?
Yeah. That's great stuff. I mean, I didn't even really see any of that. I didn't really think that was like a thing, but to now kind of see that players not only like they want to do it and managers, it's really cool. For this WBC, I mean, are there any, I guess, like sleeper teams that you're kind of like liking?
So I might have different answers after Thursday, because on Thursday is when all of the rosters will be released. And then we'll actually be able to see like what the full rosters will look like, and I'll be able to like compare them to other teams. But if we're just like guessing off of speculation, the teams that have really been sticking out to me coming into the spring are, I really like Taiwan because I really like their pool and the way it kind of lays out for them. Japan is easily the number one team in that pool. There's no doubt about it. Like they're gonna move on to the quarterfinals. But then after Japan, everyone else is kind of in the same tier or in a lower tier, because you have Korea, who has really struggled in the last couple WBCs. You have Australia, who looked really good in the last WBC, but still I wouldn't say has as much talent as Taiwan, like has as much depth. And then you have Czechia, who is frankly like a tier lower because they don't have too many like high level professional players. It's a lot of those like homegrown players, which is a great story, but I just don't think they're at the level of Taiwan yet. So I think that Taiwan really has a chance to surprise people and move on to the quarterfinals after being relegated back to qualifiers in the last WBC. That'd be a huge step up for them. And then the other team that's kind of sticking out to me is Canada. I think Canada has some pretty good depth, and they're gonna have their whole big league, like their whole lineup's gonna be big leaguers, which they haven't really ever had before. They'll have a couple big league arms as well in the starting rotation. So I like Canada in that pool too, in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, last WBC, what was that, 2023? I was locked in on, I forget which pool it was, but it was like they called the pool of doom, because it was Dominican Republic, Venezuela, Puerto Rico. I think it was Israel and Nicaragua, if I remember that. That you really had, besides Israel and Nicaragua, you had the three big teams there. So I was locked in on that. Is there a pool like that you're locked in on this year?
Yeah. I remember everyone was talking about the pool of death. It was so funny because it was like those three teams were three of the like best teams in the tournament, and they were all in the same pool, which is funny because it ended up being Pool A in 2023 it was in Taiwan. It had Taiwan. I'm gonna have to have a good
Panama,
Taiwan, Cuba, Netherlands,
Panama.
I'm blanking on one, but anyways, every single team in the pool, Italy was the last one. Every single team in that pool finished 2-2, which is crazy. To that at the end of like that whole pool stage, they all ended up with the same record, which meant that the two teams that made it to quarterfinals had the same record as Taiwan, who got relegated back to qualifiers. It was crazy. But yeah, so I don't think there is a pool of death this time in just looking at the rosters right now, because you could say it's still Miami with Dominican Republic and Venezuela, but now Puerto Rico's not there. So they don't have like that top, like that big third team. You could say, honestly, it might be Houston with USA, Mexico, Italy's looking really strong. Great Britain is like pretty underrated. I would put them in that same like kind of sleeper category. And then Brazil. So I would say that they have a pretty decent like pool. And then you go over to East Asia, you have in Japan, you have Japan, and then you have like a bunch of really competitive teams. But none of them really stick out as like the one that like is just a gauntlet to go through, as not as much as 2023, at least in my mind.
Yeah.
Do you think, I guess, another kind of like sleeper candidate type thing, do you think there's one or maybe two, whatever you want to say, players that you think maybe you've seen that have more on the line for any team, whether it's one of the better teams, whether it's one of like the teams, like I saw Mark Vientos, he committed to Nicaragua, I saw, and that's really cool. And just teams that I guess players that like him that are kind of committed to teams that aren't necessarily so good that if they perform, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, dude, that's actually a really good one, Mark Vientos, because he is eligible for like 4 or 5 different countries. So the fact that he's playing for Nicaragua is really cool because they don't have a ton of like big league talent. So he's going to really stick out and probably be there like 2-hole or 3-hole in that lineup. So I'm really excited to see him there. I think when I'm thinking about, I guess, players that stand out or like big storylines, honestly, if Lindor doesn't get approved for insurance and Correa's not there, which I don't think he will be, I think that Javi Baez, assuming he gets approved, is going to like have to carry a lot of the like leadership in that lineup, because he always, I don't know what it is about the WBC, about putting Puerto Rico on his chest, but Javi Baez is like, he turns into like prime Barry Bonds in the WBC. Like, it doesn't matter like who they're playing against or who's pitching against them or how he does in the MLB season. Like, he is going to rake in the WBC. So I think he really stands out to me. I think all the U.S. pitchers are going to be huge. So like, it's an easy answer, but like Tarek Skubal and Paul Skeens, like that's a difference maker right there. But I'm also interested to see Italy's lineup because they have a ton of youth, like a bunch of like top prospects or like really young guys. Like Dante Nori is one of the like top prospects in the Phillies organization, and he might play for them. They have Kyle Teal, They have obviously Vinny Pasquantino, Jack Caglioni, assuming he gets approved as well. So they have a lot of youth, which I'm really excited to see. I think that'll be a really fun team. Yeah. Can I ask you guys the same thing? What's like one player that y'all are excited to see in the WBC?
Yeah, I'll start. I'm not sure if he's proven. Okay, you can start.
I'll start. I'm excited. I think Harrison Bader, we see him go nuts, in the playoffs, when his teams make the playoffs. That I think, him on a big stage, obviously, Israel can maybe get hot and beat, like a Nicaragua again, or maybe they could beat like a Netherlands. I don't think so. But I think Harrison Bader, on the big stage always, seems to love the moment. And I'll just add on that, then you could say has there been any news on Jock Peterson coming back and playing in WBC?
Oh, man, that's a good question. I haven't heard much, actually. Now that you say it, I would expect to see him there because he played in 2023, but there's not really been any news that I've seen. Bader's a huge one, though, because he was originally, when he was on the Yankees, he was originally committed in 2023 to play for Israel, and then because of injury, they I don't know if he didn't get approved for insurance or they asked him to not play, but he didn't get to play last time. So, yeah, that'll be huge for them this year. But I haven't heard much about Peterson.
Yeah, I guess you could kind of speak. I'm going to go my pitcher out. Have you mentioned Team Canada? Have you heard anything about my boy Jonah Tong? Is he playing in the tournament?
Oh, yeah, he won't be there. And I'm devastated. I wanted him to play so bad. Having him in the rotation would have been incredible. Just first of all, incredible visibility for him and incredible experience, playing against all those in Puerto Rico. It would have been insane. But no, I think the Mets, they secretly told him not to.
Yeah. Any news on any news on the Netherlands on
Yeah.
Any news on the Netherlands?
It makes sense because he's still so young and trying to prove himself. What was that though?
Any news on the Netherlands on if Jurickson Profar's playing? Because I know with the suspension and everything, is he going to be playing there for the Netherlands?
Profar, I haven't heard anything about him. I know that Xander Bogaerts is expected to be there, and I would assume Ozzy Albies, assuming he's healthy. I don't know about Profar. If he's healthy, he's playing. I don't know if he did. Did he have injury surgery last year, or is it just injury?
He might have had surgery at the end of there.
Because if that's the case, that has been a case for, it seems like a lot of the guys that are getting denied insurance are a lot of the guys that had some sort of procedure late in the season. Like Lindor, who had that cleanup surgery, that cleanup procedure in the offseason after the season. So that might be the case with him too, but I don't know.
Yeah, so I guess my pick is I'd assume he's playing in the WC. I guess you could speak, but I'm going for probably the favorite in the tournament, Japan. And I'm going somebody that, he was a big guy in the offseason and didn't get paid like he wanted to. That's more Munetaka Murakami to kind of
nice.
Kind of prove everybody that, I'm the real deal. Put that strikeout stuff in the back pocket and kind of just go out there, rake, and help, bring Japan over the top and kind of make the White Sox organization feel really good about themselves and kind of, put some guilt on Major League Baseball and the team. So, yeah, I guess that's my pick. And if no, you want to wrap it up.
Yeah, last question for you. I don't know if you want to spoil it, but who do you think's winning the tournament?
Yeah, I've definitely had a lot of people ask me to give a winner. I don't think I can confidently give my official champion prediction yet without seeing the lineup, the actual rosters, the final rosters. I've given on other podcasts or other people I've talked to, I've given a Team USA prediction. I've given a Dominican Republic prediction. Those are the kind of two teams that I've stuck with because the lineups are just so stacked. And with Japan, for me, it's a top three. It's that's the top tier, those three teams right there. There's a couple teams that could definitely upset them. Venezuela, Mexico, honestly, even like Puerto Rico, even Canada, looks decent if they can get all their pitching. Right now, I think because of how much buy-in we have from the pitchers, I would not at all be shocked if Team USA just ran through the tournament. It's tournament baseball. Anything could happen. But if I were just based on the rosters, we have so much pitching that I think Team USA is going to be the favorite going into the tournament. So I'll probably say Team USA right now. Although there's like so many opportunities for them to get upset because like they always lose to Mexico. Every single WBC in the pool stage, they always lose to Mexico. They've lost like 4 WBCs in a row. So who knows?
Yeah, I'm personally excited for the WBC. You know, I think shout out friend of the pod, Max Manis, who has broken a lot of news to WBC. He's kind of gone on record in saying that I feel that he feels like we're not close. We're too far away from the last WBC that everyone kind of forgets how exciting that was and how electric it was. So thank you for taking your time on the pod, and hope to see you again.
Awesome. Yeah, man, this was awesome. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Thanks for coming on. And welcome back. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Micha Block, what are your takeaways from that episode?
Yeah, I mean, very knowledgeable. Clearly knows a lot of what he's talking about. Clearly very hands-on in the WBC world. So really cool hearing his perspective, and he's a great guy. So just being able to talk ball with him, talk international baseball, which is something we've been missing for the past 3 years. So I'm excited for the tournament, and yeah, great hearing from him.
Yeah, so we'll have more WBC episodes coming out, in a couple weeks, over the coming weeks. So we'll get more into it. But we got to talk with the guy that probably knows WBC best out of anyone in the world. We appreciate him for taking his time. We had some great conversations. He was just an absolute chill guy. Like he was a great guy to have on the pod. Hopefully we'll get him on again. Again, huge shout out, Shawn, for coming on. Remember to like and subscribe. We'll see you later. More WBC content coming your way. Let's go.